submitted testimony, submitted a GMO bill to the Honolulu Council, and that it was not allowed to be addressed. The chair did not allow it to be addressed. I mean, I just kept hitting and pearls of wisdom. And I one thing that was mentioned, there's certainly, I sort of debated, do I take this bill and really simplify it down? I think it needs to, but I really hope that we can sort of have a discussion closer to where I started, and particularly including all of those findings and purposes. A lot of that is there really addressing legal issues that I could see being raised. So I want to say on a couple points, just on the task force, I was talking about the task force on coexistence. The ones I read up on, ones in Europe and different places, how do we get coexistence and have them both? It really came down to, as the one you talked about, the state legislature, nothing happened. I'm not trying to put down task force, but specifically in that area, there was a lot of trouble. I think the ad hoc committee would certainly be preferable, and I'm not going to get into that because that's not on the present bill, but I will submit something. I do want to talk about the law, and maybe Lincoln, you could come back up. We did meet. I mean, I think this is sort of my area, and I find a lot of these memos sent out by the Attorney General or
like a dog in front of you.
Lobbyists or whatever. There's one key Supreme Court case, and all of these cases that are critical don't even cite that, and that's the Maine versus Taylor case. I have posted it as a communication, so if anyone wants to look at it, they can find it. And basically saying that a local government or state or local government has the right to whether it's a moratorium or stop certain practices, protect agriculture, in that case fishing. There are two things. There's the preemption, what has been preempted, and there's no case across the entire United States where it has challenged any of these local county prohibitions on GMOs and have gotten anywhere. Also on commerce, which is one of the, I think Councilmember Breshonishi sent around a legal memo questioning the Labeling Act of the state. I happen to agree that there are constitutional issues with labeling and doing it on a local level. But labeling, in terms of the interference with interstate commerce, is very different from where you're discussing how do you prevent contamination and degradation of the environment from the use of certain pesticides. So I also, at the earlier meeting, distributed a communication, which I can't get out again, but it's written by the United States Congressional Research Division, basically saying that addressing the preemption issue and addressing the dormant commerce clause and interstate commerce issues. So, I mean, just Lincoln, I mean, when we've spoken, I don't believe that either of us have come up with where this is an illegal bill. And I do think when someone says, what is the law that controlled us? There's the public trust doctrine and there's the precautionary principle. We don't have to know the science. It's both ways, but we're supposed to err on the side of conservation, err on the side of caution until we know better.
Ms. Willie, your time just ended, and Mr. Ishida.
Okay, I'm going to have Mr. Ishida. Why don't you comment? Make a comment.
And we'll go to the next person.
Maybe you can ask me your question.
Okay, my question is, I'm not talking about anyone else, is there something where you feel that we should not pass this, or that should be the stumbling block because it's illegal, or that it's somehow unconstitutional?
No, I think that I've been fairly consistent when asked that there are not, in my opinion, based on when I looked at your bill, including your amendments, your proposed amendments, that there are no, in my mind, obvious legal impediments that would prohibit the bill from, being passed or enforced. Certain legislation or certain acts of the council or any legislative bodies, sometimes, it's obvious that they're illegal, they're unconstitutional, they're what I call patently unconstitutional. Baseless or suspicionless drug testing is a great example. But short answer to your question, no. I think what I'm hearing today, and what has been what I've been observing is the real dispositive issues here, at least in my mind at this point, are not legal. I sense that most council members are just their concerns. It may be partially legal, but it's also they're more interested in the background or the science or those issues. I don't sense that this is one that hinges on is it legal or not. It is definitely an issue that we're going to have to look at, and that's why I contacted Mr. Castillo today on Kauai. But obviously, as I said previously, if there's any obvious legal infirmity that rose to a constitutional level, you're going to be the first to know. All 9 of you are going to be the first to know. But presently, I didn't see any.
Let me add one more sentence.
Excuse me. Mr. Sheet, are you finished?
Yeah.
Okay, hang on. We're going to Mr. Zern. Mr. Kern.
No problem. Thank you. Okay. Speaking to the bill, I'm born and raised here on the island. I love this island. This is my home. Grew up out in the country. Didn't have any Pop-Tarts. I was like granola. Wish I had like all the other stuff. So like, very much, I understand like the importance of being, of organic eating. Like, that's when I was growing up. That's how I was raised. Also, fished a lot, and I feel like this bill is like casting a massively huge net with not enough people to bring it in a decent time. And so what happens is, while you're trying to get the specific fish to bring to market or to bring to your home to feed your family, in the process you've captured a turtle in there, captured another turtle. Taking so long to get this thing through that the eels are now inside your net, eating your fish, eating your catch, and you get these unintended consequences. And all of a sudden, things you didn't want to happen. I didn't want to harm a turtle. I wanted to have my fish. The eels ate them. I ended up killing a turtle in the process. That's what this is almost happening here. Where I think we need to, yes, we need to have a good-sized net, something that we can cast out there, bring in, have it make sense. Because right now, I don't feel like why would we even have the papaya in here? Let's not talk about that. Let's talk about what are the potential issues coming in. I think the big elephant in the room is Monsanto going to come in? Is there going to be field testing here? Are my crops going to get cross-pollinated? Even if Monsanto comes in here and says they're not going to come here, I don't believe them. We should still have something, to make sure that they don't. And with this exemption in here where it says, agricultural research institution, a company like that can form an agricultural research institution like this, and maybe field testing. It's too much. Where let's pinpoint what do we really want. How do we make sure that we do not bring in any other GMOs that we do not want? How do we have an avenue that if there's an absolute need, an absolute necessity, that option would be open through council approval or some type of regulatory approval. So it's not, hey, we need it and there's going to be some falsity to it, but an actual true need. And that's what I feel like we could maybe do an ad hoc committee, or as Mr. Yoshimoto said, that maybe we can do that here in the, just to do it here and draft legislation here on the floor, which would be a totally new concept. I like it. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's such a large net. I'm just worried about the unintended consequences. And lawmaking, we have to be, I take it very serious. Like, it's the effect of a good law is good, but the effect of a bad law is way worse. It's huge. It's widespread, and that's what my concern is. And I see where you're coming from. Just like try to throw the net, lock it all up, have some exemptions, and we're good. But no, the exemption is that turtle stuck in the net, and there's already a negative impact to the papaya industry. Do you want to hurt the farmers? They've had how many years of researching this? We just have markets opening up. there's an element to, and me talking to the papaya farmers, they use the GMO papaya so they can grow the organic, but it all has a certain buffer zone, and any papaya farmer that's growing organic or non-GMO, just conventional, does not want to send their crop to their buyer and have them test it and it come up GMO. I guarantee you that. They will get rejected and they will have bad faith now with their buyer. So I know that they're working on that. It's what I've talked to them about. You know what I mean? So why have that here? Why have the floral industry? Shouldn't be part of this conversation. In my mind, there's $1 million a year business for here. There should have options to be able to adjust it that's not affecting our food source. That's not going to cross-pollinate with somebody else. I think everybody knows I am not about the big companies like that. I'm not about big GMO, and I'm vehemently opposed cross-pollination, predatory farming in any way, and that's what we need to be looking at. How do we work together? What are the issues coming in? And not turn the small papaya farmer into a Monsanto. It's not the same. It really isn't. But we do need to work together, and I firmly believe that we need to have controls in place and have a good understanding of what the effects of those controls will be for our island, for our county, so we can be food sustainable and food reliant. And I do support an ad hoc committee, or I do support working this out on the floor, but instead of all of this, let's have a good net, let's cast it right, and let's bring home the right fish to our home, to our family. I yield.
Thank you. I think we can also, I think at this point we can go either way. We can sit here today, we can keep it in committee, meet again. We are allowed to bring experts to the table if we need them. And I think we're coming kind of close, like Margaret said, to knowing a little bit about where we all want to go. And I looked at the bill pretty carefully, and I think that, for instance, and look at the code. And I don't believe that our code should be amended with anything near as wordy and complex as this. I think that we need a short findings and purpose clause. I think the prohibition should be clearly defined, and I'm not sure if this is it, but something on the lines of experimental GMO field trials, as well as any new commercial seed corn crops are prohibited. I'm not saying that's it, but some statement that narrows it down to an identifiable prohibition. And then after that, like Zendo said, you would not need long exemptions, because you're not dealing with anything else. You're identifying something that we want to do to protect our island, and then nothing else is even discussed. The same with the enforcement. I really don't believe that you need to go into too much detail on enforcement at that point, because it just won't be an issue. So if other council members may be willing, or maybe we need to think about it more, but if that's the direction we need to go, to create something that's lawful and succinct, then we could agree to do that as a committee.
Siop, are you finished?
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Poindexter.
Okay, I feel that it's my fiduciary responsibility, when it comes to protecting our county from any risks. And I feel the current Bill 79 has a lot of risks in it, and that's what I'm afraid of. And when I've heard a lot of testimony, about pesticides and the 800-pound gorilla in the room, which was Monsanto. I just feel that there's so much assumptive language and faulty logic there. I'm afraid to move with how Bill 79 is. And I'd like to see, again, something simple as the ad hoc committee set up, and making sure that Monsanto doesn't come. So it's like no open field testing on this island. Nothing like Kauai, what they're going through, or Maui, what they're going through. Prevent what they're going through happening on this island. We don't need open field testing on this island. And I understand the floral industry, is going, well, we're doing testing because they make different color roses or whatever. I don't know I don't know enough about the floral industry and what they do. But with exempting them because it doesn't. So we can put something forward that will also protect us from that type of open field testing with the exemption of the floral industry and go with an ad hoc committee. We need to take these steps. We need to take the small steps. It's like we have everything in this huge bowl, and the unintended consequences, as everybody has been mentioning, is so risky for our county and for our survival. So I just hate cutting off industries at the knees just because, and we didn't intend to. So yeah, that's where I'm going with this idea.
Ms. Lloyd? Oh, sorry, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've been hearing about the whole testing thing. I mean, why are we even testing? The reason why is we want to find out if this thing is safe or not. That's why we test. That's why we do that. We experiment to find out that if it works or it doesn't work. But we don't want to test and harm anybody, and to the extent to where we compromise somebody's health. We don't want to test that. And testing engineered crops, it's not cheap. It's expensive. And the reason why it's expensive is because they monitor everything. That's why you test, to make sure there's not unintended consequences. And I'm hearing that we're against testing, but why are we testing in the first place? We're testing in the first place to find out if it's harmful or not harmful. And I've been to the floral industry where they actually, the USDA, come and test the genetically engineered crops. And it's clearly walled off, clearly encased, and they monitor it like on a daily basis. So it's
What are you talking about?
it's pretty safe when you test. I don't even understand why. I know some people are shaking their heads, but I'm trying to understand. The reason why you have a control testing is because you want to make sure it doesn't get away. You want to make sure if it does, then you know about it. That's why we test. It's not like a backyard testing with me and my friends. It's millions of dollars, thousands, millions, I don't know, but it's expensive. And I'm gonna guess that it's pretty controlled, and I don't know why we're not open to at least testing in a controlled area. And that's just my point. I just wanna bring it out to the council members, because we do need to sometimes take a risk on a test to find out if it is harmful or it is safe. I'm just saying, we do have to take that in accountability. Thank you.
Hold on. We go on second round, Mr. Kinnenbaum.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I personally would not support the testing, especially here on Hawaii Island. We have an obligation to make sure that public health and safety is number one, and to put anything that we have here at risk of something that could become contaminated or anything like that's not a risk that I'm willing to take. But that's just your opinion, and I think it's right to have that opinion, but that's my opinion with that specific subject. On the lines of us going through this in council, I mean, it's fine. It's just this specific issue has been taking up all of my time, and you know, my constituents want to work on legislation for specific items inside our own districts, and this is consuming every single part of my time. I don't think they elected me to only talk about GMO. So I think we need to talk about a sustainable island in agriculture. I mean, that's something that I will talk about forever. But that's my opinion about that. I think Ms. Eoff hit it off exactly how I believe we should go on with this particular bill. I hope we don't start talking about all these amendments, because it just goes into chaos and completely complicated for myself And for everybody else, I think we need to stick on Bill 79 and work through this with all of us instead of all these different amendments being proposed. So until we go into later on amending this bill, I think we need to stay on this subject and keep it there and keep it within our council committee. I don't know how the rest of the council members feel about that, but I'm just throwing it out there. So
Mr. Onishi.
Thanks, Madam Chair. Yeah, I'm listening to what the comments were about keeping them in committee. I don't think we should be doing that. I think we should have it where, like I said, we defer it and we have, instead of an ad hoc, because then that's 4 members of the council, and I don't want to be on that ad hoc because I know it's going to take too much time and I have other businesses to do too. So I would recommend that we do something where, like maybe 1 council member or not even a council member on that task force or that study group and have that, we the council hire someone that can run that meeting or to be a mediator to do it and get everybody together and keep it independent as much as possible, and then they come back and give us the recommendations. But to keep it at committee level, I don't think, because this could last a whole year. Because with, like Mr. Canode mentioned about all these amendments, I mean, then we're going to counter that other amendment at the next meeting and so forth. It's going to go back and forth, and the people would have to come out every single meeting, and they would testify on every meeting about what the amendments are, and then, I think we'll be wasting your time. So I think we should, like I say, defer it, form whatever group that we need to get, but like an independent where I don't think any council members should be on it, but then if anybody wants to be on it, I'm fine with that, but I don't want to be on it. Thank you.
Mr. Yoshimoto.
There's so much to comment on. I don't know where to start, Madam Chair. I think you want to speak for me?
Still way off topic.
Well, in deference to the chair, I think, I did talk about Bill 79 and, how it's currently drafted, so I think that's clear. I think the horticulturists and the fire farmers, we need to make provisions to make sure that, that they can continue to do business in a responsible manner. I think that's just the way we need to figure that out. But in terms of a task force or ad hoc committee or keeping it in committee, I'm totally open to that. I just offered keeping it in committee as another option. It will be it'll be a struggle, I think, as I mentioned before, if we're in committee. But I think it'll be a similar struggle with the ad hoc. The difference is, I guess, you would have more flexibility in having that discussion in the ad hoc committee. So council members, I support either one. Because the downside of having it in committee is, like Mr. Onishi said, it could possibly take a year. I would think the ad hoc committee would be in a far quicker timetable. Can't predict it, but that would be my gut instinct about that. And either way, I think we need to do something. I think doing nothing is the worst thing to do. So it gives me this look that anyway, she can't talk because, as you know, she's the chair of the committee, so she speaks last. She can't participate in the discussion. So that's the price of chairmanship in this board. Thank you.
Mr. Willie.
I think the question is whether we pass something now, at least as a moratorium, which if you were to just simply take this bill and take out the sunset clause, basically just that, to say it would be basically a moratorium and add a task force. In other words, do we draw the line and go on and discuss where to go, or do we not do anything at this point and go into a discussion and put off making a decision? I don't think we have the luxury of doing that. I mean, I think that at least what I understood Ms. Poindexter saying, and also Ms. Eoff, if we draw the line and have have a moratorium, and so we're holding things at bay right now, and go into, I think the ad hoc committee, I did put something out as a communication just to give a framework for doing that. I'm trying to, I think the simplest thing for me is like what Councilmember Kern said is, I feel like I've sort of taken what everybody's been saying, and I'd like to have the opportunity to basically do a stripped down version and come out with something simple. But when I say simple, I just want to say that the symbol of coffee and taro is just a blanket no. Okay, so it makes it much simpler. It's just no, and that by doing looking at each industry, we've got you are allowed to really address it on a case-by-case basis. But if we do it as a moratorium, we're then and do an ad hoc committee, we're in a position to move forward without worrying, as Walter Ritty said on Molokai, suddenly we woke up and it was everywhere. Everywhere. And at the same time, I just want to say two things in terms of what, there's experimental corn on the other islands, but that's not, if you look at other areas of the country, you could be doing experimental wheat here. I think that we need to do it. For me, there's the web of life. I mean, it's not just us, it's the bees, it's the microorganisms, and what is the impact we're having on the soil. It is that whole contamination and the use of the associated pesticides that then creates those dust storms, and you don't get the soil back. So I feel like we're pretty coming together. I'd like to say I feel we need to draw the line. Otherwise, we will not make the decision. The decision will be made on a different level of government. And lastly, I just want to say, with respect to the findings, that entire section could come out. That's basically, I tried to leave a lot in here because I do want the public to read what's going on and follow this conversation. I could have gone to like a stripped down version, but I really wanted to work through, and I hadn't heard any of the other council members. I also agree with many of the things like the word sale and distribution in the prohibition and then taking it out. All of those things need to be cleaned up, the broader net. I just want to quickly go through a couple of things on the bill and how the whole idea of exemptions and the options. Info